First and foremost, it just revealed the kind of character that we have. The toughness, the relentless spirit, the flexibility.
First and foremost, it just revealed the kind of character that we have. The toughness, the relentless spirit, the flexibility. Welcome back to the Clark Update. Today's story has taken yet another unexpected turn, with fresh developments commanding the attention of WNBA fans across the country. From startling claims to fierce reactions, the conversation surrounding this situation is growing louder by the hour. So what is actually happening beneath the surface? Has this story arrived at a genuine crossroads? And where does it go from here? Stay with me all the way through because we are breaking down the critical details, the most recent reactions, and everything you need to understand. Now let's get straight into today's story without wasting another second. It is over. The entire structure is on the verge of a catastrophic, system-wide implosion, and the people in positions of authority are handing the arsonists the matches while personally pouring gasoline onto the flames. Make no mistake about it, this has stopped being about a basketball game. This is an open, aggressive, and completely undeniable revolt unfolding in real time inside the WNBA. Caitlin Clark's story has become a civil war being waged by the league against its own salvation, its own golden opportunity, and its own last remaining chance at relevance. And this internal conflict has now produced its first high-profile casualty. They pushed a coach out. She did not resign on her own terms, which would have been far too clean and convenient. They drove a recognized, accomplished head coach to abandon her supporters, abandon the public conversation, and abandon the very concept of being held accountable, because the raw, unfiltered truth that hundreds of thousands of new fans were screaming into the digital atmosphere became too overwhelming for a crumbling establishment to continue suppressing. This is a 5-alarm emergency. This is a live, real-time demonstration of total institutional failure. And what we are witnessing is the public application of common sense, broadcast in full view of the entire world. The so-called experts occupying mainstream sports media, the ones with direct financial incentives to protect the league's image, are actively deceiving you. They are feeding you lines like this is just standard rookie treatment and wrapping it in condescending, dismissive language. They are working overtime to convince you that this is simply a matter of physical play and welcome to the league toughness. That narrative is a blatant and offensive lie, and the fans, the actual human beings who are for the first time in this league's troubled history genuinely funding its existence, are screaming that truth from every corner of the internet. And at long last, their voices and their completely justified fury have broken through the carefully constructed wall of silence and institutional denial. Stephanie White, head coach of the Connecticut Sun, the league's lone undefeated team, just discovered firsthand what it costs when you participate in the league's filthiest open secret and get caught doing it. Her team, which is genuinely talented, faced off against the Indiana Fever. And as has become the predictable, tiresome pattern, they deployed absurd, unnecessary, and outright dangerous physical aggression specifically targeting Caitlin Clark. It appears to be the universal playbook circulating quietly through every locker room in this league. If you cannot outthink her, hit her. If you cannot outshoot her, drive her into the third row with a hip check. It is a strategy that substitutes brutality for basketball ability, but this time was categorically different. This time, the reaction extended far beyond scattered frustration. The flood was biblical. The collective fan base of Caitlin Clark unleashed a torrent of unrestrained fury, a fan base that, it must be stated plainly, currently constitutes the WNBA's entire paying audience. They have reached their absolute limit watching the most dynamic player in the league treated like a human target night after night after night. The screen fills with a rapid, disorienting wave of social media activity, YouTube comment sections, Instagram replies, and posts directed at Stephanie White and the Connecticut Sun's official accounts scroll across the frame. Usernames and highlighted messages appear in rapid succession. Disgraceful. This is not basketball. Protect your stars. The responses were brutal. They were relentless. They showed no restraint whatsoever. You should be ashamed because your organization plays dirty. Is this a basketball game or a coordinated attack? The league needs to investigate this immediately. You are just another envious coach who cannot stand that a 22-year-old has more talent in one hand than your entire roster combined. It went on for hours. A digital army of supporters who can plainly see what the media, the players, and the league offices are either unwilling or unable to acknowledge, that there is a deliberate, organized effort to physically and psychologically dismantle the one individual who holds the power to elevate this entire league to genuine worldwide significance. And what was the outcome of this public reckoning when the unvarnished truth was placed on full display for the world to examine? Stephanie White could not hold her ground. The pressure was too suffocating. The reality was too damaging. Her account on X was deleted. She retreated. She offered no defense. So she fled the conversation entirely. There is no justification for this. There is no angle from which what is happening can be defended. This goes considerably deeper than a coach choosing to step away from social media after receiving harsh comments. This is symptomatic of a fundamental structural rot inside the WNBA itself. The paying audience, the very supporters her league so desperately needs to sustain its own existence, publicly humiliated the head coach of an undefeated team and drove her into digital exile. This represents an enormous, resounding vote of no confidence cast by the people who matter most. This is the audience standing up and telling the WNBA directly and without ambiguity that they see through the charade. The jealousy is transparent. The coordinated assault is visible. And if you destroy your own product, you will not see another dollar from us. The league, the coaches, the veteran players, and the entire organizational apparatus have collectively constructed a toxic, hostile, and genuinely dangerous environment, not just for Caitlin Clark on the court, but for anyone perceived as belonging to the entrenched old guard that so visibly despises everything she represents. They have nurtured a culture of resentment and tribalism. And now it is detonating in their faces in the most dramatic and publicly visible manner imaginable. They genuinely believed they could control the narrative. They drastically underestimated the intelligence of the people, convinced that ESPN's media voices could repackage this as normal and pull the wool over the eyes of millions of new viewers. They completely failed to account for the depth of the direct emotional and financial investment that millions of new supporters have made in Caitlin Clark. This has ceased to be a sports controversy. It is a full-scale cultural confrontation. It is a revolt against a fragile, insecure establishment so consumed by its fear of a transcendent superstar that it would sooner burn the entire structure to the ground than acknowledge she is larger and more significant than all of them combined. A high-definition slow-motion replay of an egregious foul on Clark plays continuously on screen. It is followed by slow-motion footage of a dangerous hip check. Bold red text overlays the images. This is not basketball. This is a targeted campaign of physical harm. Let us be completely, unflinchingly, and brutally clear about what is happening on those courts every single night. This is not basketball. It is a coordinated campaign of physical intimidation, actively sustained by the toxic jealousy of veteran players who cannot tolerate the fact that a rookie commands every spotlight they were never able to earn, and implicitly endorsed by the league office's deafening, complicit silence. They do not compete alongside her. They assault her. They do not box her out. They shove her to the floor when officials are looking elsewhere. And the referees? They are either operating under instructions from above, catastrophically incompetent, or actively participating in something far more troubling. No other reasonable explanation exists. Every single person watching has seen it happen repeatedly. The off-ball shoves, the cheap shots, the persistent grabbing and clutching. It is beyond dispute. People like Stephanie White enable and normalize this behavior, and it is a profound disgrace to the sport they claim to represent. Like virtually every other coach this season, her entire game plan rests on a single pathetic premise: physically punish Caitlin Clark until she breaks. When the fans and paying customers confronted her publicly about it, she could not stand and face them. She ran. She shut down the dialogue. And that withdrawal is an admission of guilt in the most transparent possible form. It represents the single most revealing moment in this entire unfolding farce. It confirms that they know. They know what they are enabling is wrong, ugly, and completely indefensible. They simply never conceived that a fan base this large and this passionate would hold them personally accountable for it. They assumed that public opinion could never penetrate their insulated, self-contained little world. The gates, however, have been blown open. The financial consequences of this organized exercise in self-sabotage are going to be severe beyond anything those involved are currently prepared to reckon with. The flood is already here. A powerful split screen fills the frame. On one side, an entirely sold-out arena packed with thousands of fans wearing Clark jerseys for an Indiana Fever game. On the other side, archive footage from a previous season showing a half-empty WNBA venue, quiet and lifeless. It is essential to remember the reality of this league just 12 months ago. The WNBA was, in honest terms, a financial dependent. It operated in front of crowds composed largely of friends, family members, and a modest core of dedicated followers. It was a league propped up by NBA funding across decades of losses, a persistent money pit, a niche product with no meaningful crossover appeal to the general public. Then Caitlin Clark arrived. She became, almost instantaneously, a one-woman economic stimulus package for an entire organization that had been bleeding out for years. Ticket prices across the league surged by over 200%. Viewership numbers on certain nights began surpassing those of NBA and NHL broadcasts, shattering records that had stood for decades. Her jersey became the highest-selling draft pick jersey in the documented history of professional sports, across any sport, any gender, any era. She single-handedly applied enough financial and public pressure that the league finally agreed, after years of player complaints, to provide charter flights for every team. She is a one-woman economic miracle of a scale this league has never remotely experienced. Any rational organization, any company operating with even a baseline level of strategic intelligence and fundamental survival instinct would have wrapped her in protective armor from day one. They would have ensured that officiating crews treated her as the invaluable national asset she demonstrably is. Every advertising campaign, every television partnership, every social media strategy would have been constructed around her. She would have been established as the league's unquestioned, proudly celebrated public face, and anyone who challenged that positioning would have been dealt with swiftly and decisively. What has the WNBA actually done instead? The precise opposite. They have allowed their most bitter and envious players to use her as a physical outlet every night without consequence. The league's most prominent veteran voices, rather than arriving with gratitude for their dramatically elevated salaries and national visibility, have chosen podcasts and media appearances as platforms to disparage her, complain about her, and deliberately stoke hostility toward her. Out of sheer undisguised jealousy, they are poisoning their own water supply. In the entire modern history of professional sports, this stands as the most spectacular and self-defeating act of institutional destruction ever committed. They received a lottery ticket worth billions and collectively voted to set it on fire. Take a moment to consider what this would have looked like if the NBA in the 1980s had decided that Michael Jordan was accumulating too much individual attention. What would the outcome have been if David Stern had allowed the bad boy Pistons' ruthless and unethical tactics to go completely unchecked and ultimately driven Jordan away from the sport? The NBA would not have survived that decision in any meaningful form. It would exist today as a forgotten footnote in the margins of sports history. The WNBA is standing on precisely that same ledge right now. They are consciously, deliberately choosing to be the Detroit Pistons. They are actively living through their Michael Jordan moment. The league is populated at every level: executives, coaches, players, administrators, with individuals who would rather govern over a kingdom of smoldering wreckage than bear witness to the legitimate rise of a new generational figure. And the most financially invested, most attentive fans in this league's history are watching every single second of it unfold. Since the mainstream media lacks the courage to amplify what the public is actually saying, allow me to share what you have been putting into words directly. They are too cautious, too protective of their media relationships with league partners. Your voices are what matter now. One by one, full-screen comments and posts fill the frame for maximum clarity and impact. This first comes from Jayhawks fan 88. The deletion of Stephanie White's account is the most damning piece of evidence available. She was the Fever's coach not long ago. She knows exactly what a generational talent looks like up close. Now that she runs an undefeated program, her entire defensive scheme involves instructing her players to physically target Clark. She was confronted publicly and folded instantly. That is the definition of cowardice. This next one is from Sarah P. 22. There is nothing subtle about this anymore. It is a league-wide coordinated effort. The veteran players are terrified of irrelevance, and the league office is too intimidated by its own players to do anything about it. The WNBA is permitting open abuse of its most important asset because the people running it have no spine. And this final one from Real Talk Sports Guy captures the entire situation precisely. If Adam Silver and the NBA Board of Governors do not intervene to implement serious reform in the WNBA immediately, this league will not exist in 3 years. You cannot build a marketing infrastructure around a superstar and simultaneously allow your roster of veterans to publicly undermine and demean her on national television. This is a PR catastrophe, an HR disaster, and a financial emergency all wrapped into one. This is the unadorned reality. The league administration is expending enormous energy attempting to pretend these facts do not exist. But a genuine revolution cannot simply be ignored into irrelevance. Stephanie White learned that lesson at significant personal cost. Her departure from the public conversation functions as a perfect metaphor for the condition of the entire system. They have no answers. They have no justification. They cannot construct a rational defense for any of this. All they have left is a desperate, flailing attempt to preserve some fragment of institutional authority while everything around them transforms beyond recognition. The damage becomes more permanent with each passing week that this spectacle is allowed to continue. Every cheap shot that escapes a referee's attention, every bitter comment from a resentful veteran player, every coach who builds a game plan around physically breaking Caitlin Clark, chips away further at the fragile foundation of the league's recent and hard-won growth. Sponsors will not indefinitely associate their brands with this level of chaos and dysfunction. Parents will not hold up players who conduct themselves as bullies on a national stage as role models worth emulating. The tens of millions of casual observers that Caitlin Clark recruited into this sport will grow disgusted, disengage, and walk away. And when they walk away this time, they will not return. They will leave behind a league that is more bankrupt, more irrelevant, and more embarrassing than it was before she ever arrived. The legacy of the players and coaches who, out of pure corrosive envy, destroyed the most valuable thing that had ever entered their professional lives, will be permanent and undeniable. Every one of us is a witness to this slow-motion act of self-destruction. We are watching an institution make a conscious, deliberate decision to end its own relevance. It is a wretched, humiliating, and entirely preventable catastrophe. What does the alternative look like? It looks like a functioning, professionally managed league, a league guided by people with genuine business acumen, a league that understands modern sports marketing, a league that fiercely protects its most irreplaceable assets. Look at how the NFL treats its quarterbacks. Breathe on one with excessive force and you are facing an automatic penalty and a substantial fine. Look at how the NBA constructed its era of superstar elevation. They built and adapted their rules specifically to create space for elite scorers to perform at the highest level because they understood that people paid their money to witness Michael Jordan operate at his ceiling, not to watch him get knocked to the floor by someone who lacked the talent to contain him through legitimate means. The WNBA has chosen to actively resist this proven and extraordinarily successful framework. They have chosen disorder. They have chosen bitterness. They have chosen institutional self-immolation, and now they are absorbing the scorching consequences of that choice. The situation involving Stephanie White is the canary in the coal mine. It is the first unmistakable, publicly documented signal that the structure is buckling under the mounting pressure of supporter outrage. They can no longer operate in the shadows. They cannot maintain the pretense that none of this is occurring. We are paying attention. The documentation exists. The social media record is preserved. The video evidence is extensive, damning, and completely overwhelming. This is a dying institution's final desperate attempt to suffocate a vision of a genuinely better future while clinging to a past that nobody outside of a shrinking inner circle ever cared deeply about. It cannot hold. It will not hold. If sweeping, top-down structural reform is not executed immediately and without hesitation, the collapse will arrive on schedule. The commissioner must step in with decisive, unmistakable authority. Every dirty play must carry a severe financial penalty. Suspensions must be handed down without apology. Every coach and every player must receive a message that is clear, public, and completely unambiguous. The future of this league is Caitlin Clark, and if you stand in the way of that future or attempt to cause her harm, you will be removed. Anything short of that standard is a declaration of open hostility against the supporters, against growth, and against the league's own survival. I want to ask you something directly right now. When you sit down and watch these games, what do you actually see? Do you see aggressive but legitimate defense? Hard-nosed physical basketball? Or do you see something more deliberate, a calculated, systematic campaign of physical and psychological intimidation? And when a head coach deletes her entire public account in the wake of public scrutiny, do you read that as a routine act of personal self-care? Or do you see it for what it plainly is, a frightened admission of guilt made under the crushing weight of public accountability? The battle lines have been drawn with absolute clarity. The mainstream media will not deliver you the truth. The league will not volunteer it. That responsibility now rests entirely with the people who are genuinely paying attention. Your voice carries more weight in this moment than it ever has before. So tell me right now in the comment section below, do you stand with Caitlin Clark and the future that professional women's basketball could actually become? Or do you stand with a deteriorating, envious, self-destructing establishment that is scrambling frantically to dismantle her before she fully realizes what she is capable of becoming? The decision is yours. The entire world is watching to see who shapes what comes next.